I've been asked twice now to write a formal account of what happened at the Draval compound on the 14th day of the Vorthal Summit. I have declined both times. What I know about paperwork is that it tends to find the wrong drawer, and what happened in that yard does not belong in a drawer. So this is the unofficial version, for whoever finds it useful. My name is Harlan Voss. I held the rank of Master Sergeant in the Terran Handler Corps for 22 years. I retired from active service 4 years prior to the summit, and I was present at the compound in the capacity of what the diplomatic mission called a behavioral liaison, a title that means they wanted someone who knew dogs without having to explain what a dog was to a room full of admirals. I had one dog with me. His name was Rex, and he was 11 years old, and his muzzle had gone the color of old snow, and he had served 8 years in the Corps before his hips made the decision for both of us. He was a German Shepherd of the working line, not big for the breed, not flashy. He had a scar along his left shoulder from a posting I don't talk about, and one ear that didn't track quite right since a breach clearing in the Kareth corridors, and he had a habit of leaning his full weight against your leg when he sat beside you, as if he wanted to make sure you were still there. He was the only dog at the compound that week. Everyone else had left their animals aboard ship. I want to be precise about the Vorthal war beasts, because I think precision matters here, and I don't want anyone to think I'm minimizing what they were. The Vorthal had bred them over what their handlers told us was 300 years of selective program. Not for scent, not for tracking, not for any task a handler's dog would recognize. They were bred for presence, for the specific biological effect that certain predator signatures have on other living things at close range. The sensation in a room when one of them walked in was not fear exactly. It was older than fear. It was the thing that lives underneath fear and doesn't have a clean name in any language I speak. There were 6 of them. They wore segmented ceremonial armor along their spines and shoulders, gold black, articulated, the joints engraved with kill tallies the handlers translated for us as songs of the beast. They moved like something hydraulic. Not fast. They didn't need to be fast. They needed only to exist in the space and let the space reorganize itself around them. The Vorthal handlers brought them into the kennel yard on the afternoon of the 14th day. It was a demonstration, not a threat, they told the diplomatic team. A cultural display. The war beasts were shown at the opening of significant negotiations to communicate the sincerity of the Vorthal delegation's position. What it communicated, practically speaking, was that the Vorthal took the summit seriously enough to show us what they could field. I was sitting on a bench along the east wall of the yard. Rex was sitting beside me, leaning. He had been leaning all morning. My left leg had gone numb from the knee down around the 2nd hour, and I had not moved him because I'm not an idiot. One of the Vorthal handlers, a tall one, 3-jointed arms, wearing the same gold black as the beast's armor, stopped when he saw Rex. He looked at the dog for a long moment. Then he said something to his colleague, and the colleague looked, and they both made a sound that the translation module in my ear rendered as the local equivalent of a dismissive exhale. One of them added a phrase the module gave me as, "The Earth delegation brought their vermin." I didn't respond. Rex didn't respond. He was watching a bird on the far wall. The handlers released the war beasts into the yard. They moved out in a practice spread, not random, not chaotic, a formation. The lead beast went first, and the others positioned around it in a rough arc, and the whole thing was very clearly something they had done many times in many yards before many delegations. It was effective. I could hear the diplomatic attaches shifting on the other side of the observation glass behind me. The lead beast made it about 20 meters into the yard before it slowed. It didn't stop. Not yet. It slowed the way something slows when it reads a piece of information it wasn't expecting and needs a moment to process it. The others slowed with it. Not because of a command. I was watching the handlers, and no command came. They slowed because the lead slowed, and because whatever the lead had read, they read it too. Rex had turned his head. That was all. He had been watching the bird, and then he wasn't watching the bird anymore, and he was looking at the lead beast the way he looked at everything, with the particular quality of attention that working shepherds develop after years of operational duty, which is not aggression, and is not fear, and is not even wariness exactly. It is the look of something that has already made a complete assessment of the situation and found it unremarkable. The look that says, I have categorized you. You're not a problem. You may proceed. The lead beast did not proceed. It stopped. Fully. 4 meters from Rex's bench, in the middle of the yard, in the middle of a cultural demonstration of Vorthal military sincerity. It stopped. It dropped its head a fraction. Not a bow. Not a gesture. Something more involuntary than either of those things. The second beast stopped. Then the third. Then the other 3 staggered across the yard, all of them going still in the way that large things go still when something is told them, below the threshold of conscious thought, that they are in the presence of something that outranks them. Rex looked at them for another moment or two. Then he yawned, a full, jaw-cracking, eye-watering yawn, and he leaned back against my leg and watched the bird again. The yard was completely silent. The Vorthal handler, the tall one with the 3-jointed arms, walked out into the yard. He stood beside his lead beast for a moment. He looked at Rex. He looked at me. His translation module rendered the words with about a half-second delay, which is how I knew his voice had done something unusual on the way out. What command did you give the animal? I didn't give any. Another silence. Longer. What training produced this response? I thought about that for a moment. Rex was still watching the bird. 11 years, I said. The handler looked at Rex for a long time. Rex did not look back. He had said everything he was going to say to the war beasts, and he was finished, and there was a bird. I don't know exactly what the handler understood in that moment. The translation modules aren't built for the things that pass between handlers and their animals and the people who watch both. But he walked back to his colleagues without another word, and he gave a command I didn't catch, and the war beasts reformed their arc and were walked back to their handler's side, and the demonstration was by apparent mutual agreement concluded. The diplomatic accord was signed that evening. 19 articles, 2 annexes, a framework for shared navigational corridors that the trade analysts called a significant breakthrough. I was not in the room for the signing. I was outside on the same bench. Rex had his head on my knee. His breathing had the slow, deep rhythm it got when he was most of the way to sleep, but keeping one ear turned toward the world, the way he had always done, the way he would probably keep doing until the last day of his life. Inside, through the observation glass, I could see the handlers from the Vorthal side, standing in a loose group. The tall one was there. He was facing the glass, facing the dark outside where Rex and I sat, though I don't think he could see us clearly. He stood very still for a while. Then he looked away. Rex slept. That is the unofficial account. I don't expect it will satisfy anyone who wanted numbers in it. What I can tell you is that 300 years of breeding for presence walked into a yard and met 11 years of something else. And the math came out the way it always does when you confuse a tool built for intimidation with a thing that simply knows what it is. We shipped out the next morning. Rex slept through departure too. He usually does.